I'm Ryan Milliken from Hardway Performance, and you're listening to the Diesel Power Podcast.
I'm Dimitri Miller with No Zone Diesel.
This is Anthony Reeves from XDP.
Jaron Holder from Holderdown Performance.
I'm Corey Willis with PPEI.
I'm Drew with D&J Precision Machine.
I'm Pinky.
And you're listening to the Diesel Power Podcast.
Diesel Power Podcast.
And you're listening to the Diesel Power Podcast.
The one and only Diesel Power Podcast.
Man, we're excited to have you on. I've been following you on social media for I don't know how long, and all the cool toys that you got and and everything. How you been?
Good. Obviously, a new position over here last year. Things are going good. So
That's what I was gonna say. When I saw that you were joining up with Calibrated Power, I was pumped. There's your 5.9 that you had. I followed that truck for a really long time, and the different setups that you had on it, and how you experimented, with it. So I knew some really cool stuff was going to be coming along for you guys.
yeah. That truck ultimately put me where I am today. It's now that it's gone, it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, I definitely I followed you all the way back pretty much since when I bought the truck on Cummins forum. I remember seeing you and the silver bullet you had.
Isn't it? When I saw that you had the truck for sale, it took me back to, the first truck I ever really did anything with. And when I sold it, it's like it took me back to all those memories of like the blood and the sweat and the tears and the fun. And it's so hard to watch them drive away,
Yeah, that was definitely the hardest part, watching it drive away. I mean, I had a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of experiences. I learned a lot with that truck. I did a lot of stuff with it. Met a lot of great people. Again, it put me where I am today. Nick was the original one to tune the truck with EFI Live. When I first bought it, I went with the first thing I put on it was like a Diablo Sport Predator, and then that wasn't good enough. So a couple weeks later, I put the Smarty Junior on, and then this was. That was really right around the time that EFI Live had first came into market for the Dodge stuff, where guys were starting to get them tuned with it. And then obviously I met up with Nick. I live 30 minutes from CPS, so it was nice. It was convenient. It was really close to the house. Everybody else was far from where I lived. Came down, met Nick and Bob, had them tune the truck. And at the time, that was just stock trans, stock turbo. Everything was stock on the truck. Put a tune in it, and then shortly after that, put a built trans in it, and then, came back. At the time it was Cummins tuner, so came back, saw Nick. We put more power to it, and then it went on from there. It was just seemed like a downhill slope of funds. Starting at that point. So
isn't it cool though, like being able, when you love trucks, you're passionate about them, and you're not, in the industry or anything like that, but then when you get to do it for a living, it's like you don't even work, Yeah,
it's a completely different experience. Instead of building my truck, I help build other people's trucks. So being able to do that and not having the personal expense come out of it, definitely a similar feeling. I get to express, the joy for the sport of helping other people do it, so to speak. It's not, it's not my direct experience. I'm not driving it and turning the wrenches on it. I get to help them, share the same experience that I've already been through. So it's definitely fun. Like you said, it isn't work. At times it's very busy. You have a lot of people that are always sending you messages and trying to ask, for advice or help to what to do next. So it is fun. It's fun.
So like when guys call in and they have a Cummins and they want to talk about tuning or parts, they get you on the phone?
Me or any of the other sales guys. If the guys ask for a specific person, we try to get them over to them. Sometimes, we'll have guys that are, that might not have the same experience or they want to talk to somebody that's a little bit more knowledgeable and might grab them or some of the other guys will ask for assistance and try to help them out, make sure the customer knows exactly what to expect, what they're getting and what they're getting into, if they do this is what they have to look forward to do next to support the last part or the future. So it's exciting. A lot of people get really excited about doing stuff, and they get a bunch of money together, and they it's crazy the amount of money that people will spend. But you get a guy that calls in for tunes. Perfect example. Shortly after I started here, I got a guy. He actually came by my house, picked up something from me, and I gave him a card. I said, hey, if you're interested in getting this thing tuned. He's like, I just bought it. I'm not going to do anything to it. Fast forward like 2 months later, it started with a tune, and then within 2 months, he came back and we turned the truck up to like 700 horsepower. Dropped anywhere from $15,000 to $18,000 in a very short amount of time. So they get really excited. You just need to, get them interested, show them what you got, what we're capable of doing, and go from there. The guys are willing. Most of the guys are willing to listen and take the advice that we give them. Other guys are they're looking for information. They eventually they'll either come back or they'll do it themselves. Either way, it's nice to be able to help it.
Always starts with that tuner.
Yeah, it's the first. That's the first thing. Tune only is definitely the best bang for the buck. That's the one thing we definitely try to put into a lot of the customers' minds. Dollar for dollar, that is the best thing that they're going to be able to do for that truck for the money that they spend.
Now, I've got to veer off of like the diesel-centered podcast for a second, because there's something you have that I've always wanted, and I love seeing it on Instagram, and that's your Cobra. And it looks like you've been doing a lot of part swapping and upgrades and stuff on it. I wanted to ask you a little bit about the car. Like, have you always just been drawn to Cobras? Did you buy it new? What's the story behind it?
Well, I had one back in 2007. Got rid of that car a short amount of time. Not long after I got it. I had it for a few months, got rid of it. Ever since then, I wanted another one. As you know, when the truck blew up back in 2015, I ended up parting that truck out, bought the car, and then I had a plan to put a turbo on it and make 1,000 horsepower. That's what I ended up doing, and slowly just trying to get the rest of the supporting mods there to make the car hook and be reliable. So that's where that came in. The Cobra was something I wanted for a long time. I had one for a short amount of time, got rid of it, bought another one, and I had both the truck and the car, so it was best of both worlds.
Do you miss the supercharger sound?
No, not at all. Not at all.
What's it like? So, I mean, you're shooting for 1,000 horse on the car. I'm sure you've had, a 1,000 horse truck, and you're around them all day long. Which kind of power do you like more, or is it even comparable? In a something like a Mustang Cobra to a pickup truck.
They are not comparable at all. They're two completely different animals. So 1,000 horsepower in a truck versus a car. Obviously, there's a huge weight advantage on the car side. A car with 1,000 horsepower and a suspension that's not ready for it is not exactly the best feeling either. So it's the truck is very controlled feeling. It's a lot bigger.
Yeah.
The car, it's sketchy and unpredictable. The truck is a lot more tame. 1,000 horsepower is not tame. A lot of people would think that's crazy to think, but when you compare them, two different platforms like that, they're not even in the same category. 1,000 horsepower in a truck is very controllable and safe feeling.
Yeah, I guess I never really thought about it like that, but I guess when you're in them, it's just it's the size, it's the weight, it's everything. But there's also like you feel like you could go to the grocery store in it, or get on the freeway and you can control it versus something so light. If the suspension isn't dialed in the way you want it, I'm sure it's a wild ride. Yeah,
it'll definitely get your attention very quickly when things get out of control. But also you got with anything, you have to have respect for something with that kind of power. Know what you're doing with it. It's a lot of fun, but it's not a lot of fun if you don't have any respect for it. So you ultimately end up costing you a lot of money.
Bring it back to the diesel part of it. So with this UCC truck, you gonna be driving it?
Yeah, and actually, I got Nick here. Nick just joined with us.
Hey, Patrick.
Hey, Nick.
Nick is a huge part. I mean, obviously, all of it is Nick. I just had the opportunity to be the driver for that. So Nick is, obviously the owner of Calibrated Power. It is his truck, his idea. Obviously, he's the one paying for it. I just got.
Just get to do the fun part.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's also taking a big risk, and like he was talking about with the cars, you got to have respect for them. You got to have experience with that. I mean, there's a reason that we chose Jim for the job of driver, and that is that when things do get out of control or get sketchy or get to be too much, it's my hope that he'll be able to react and with the least impact to damaged parts or bodies.
When I was on the Diesel Performance podcast with Paul and Danny, I had joked about Cummins-swapping a Duramax, and then you guys go and Cummins-swap a Cummins, and this build is so cool. Like, I remember listening to the episode you guys did, and you went through a lot of the details of it. How is that all coming along now, 2-3 months later? Is it finally, getting to that point where you guys can go out and test it and get, data from it and start dialing it in?
It's a really interesting thing to go through a project like this. And I mean, you start from the top and you get a theory, right? And you get this great idea and you start putting pieces together. And as you go through it, you eventually start to realize that there's pieces to your pieces, and then those pieces have pieces, and then it becomes a mess. I think right now we're in a place where we have a manageable group of pieces, and we're optimistic that with the timeline that we have, we can get everything to fit together. The truck is being worked on 8 hours a day, every day pretty much, and we're on timeline for it. We have not fired it yet. We're hoping to fire it next week. But the motor's in, the pumps are set up, turbochargers are in, fuel system is 80%, I would say. The bed should show up on Monday, and then from there we just got to drop the fuel cell, the radiator, the air to water reservoir, and just a lot of bolting up of stuff. But it's the fabrication part that eats up a lot of time, and the designing of parts. And I think for the most part, the design and fab is done. It's mostly just painting and fitting now.
I can't even imagine how much. I don't think I've ever seen it done. To put that size motor into a pickup truck and then make it all work, it's probably the most important part.
I mean, if I was smart about it, I would have started with a reasonable power level ISL, an 800 or 900 horse ISL, and got that working, and then done the turbo kit and the fuel system on top of that. We have a lot of unknowns in this thing as it is right now.
It's gonna be interesting to say the least. I mean, there are definitely a lot of unknowns. I think we'll work through it, though. I think everything will be like we anticipated. There's nothing that's been alarming yet. Just waiting on parts and pieces, and like Nick said, fabricating is the longest. For the most part, the longest part on certain things.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of tranny is going to be behind that motor? That's what I've been wondering.
Yeah, it literally looks like a peanut. Firepunk has put together their stage 100 transmission. I don't know what they call it.
It's like a it's a Comp 3 that's been worked. I expressed to Levon. Obviously, the thing's going to make a ridiculous amount of torque. The problem is the operating RPM range. That was the biggest question. We're not going to be turning the same RPM as most of the competitors, probably any of the competitors. So, big worry was about line pressure early at that really low RPM. So, getting the pump to generate enough pressure down low.
Yeah, to hold on.
Yeah, to just hopefully hang tight.
That's what I was thinking about. It's just a totally different power band, and especially with the turbo setup and everything you guys got going on with it, it's not the typical 5.9 or 6.4 deck plate motor kind of build.
No, for sure. I mean, these motors from the factory had red lines fuel cut at 2,200 RPM. They were all in. It's full power was 1,600 RPM. So we're hoping to be all in by 3,500 RPM. But still, it's a 10.4 liter rotating assembly. We don't really want to be, we don't want to add RPM to our list of unknowns.
Right. Right, definitely. It's one of the things I've really look forward to seeing go, and I know you guys are probably going to get calls about a swap kit for it.
The swap itself, I mean, it was challenging, but I don't know. I would do another one. Like, if I could probably be talked into another one.
I doubt that.
It's a cool deal, Everybody's torque is king, when it comes down to it, and drivability is a big thing here. So, the more torque and the more drivability, cubic inches just make that much easier.
Jim and I were talking the other day about tuning, and I'm glad that you're with us to chat, today, Nick. But the Smarty MM3 tuning, it's something that guys are asking about it all the time. It's one of those platforms where when you're a Cummins guy, about Smarty's history and how their tuning works and all they've done. But as it relates to these new trucks, you guys are doing a ton with that. And I wanted to ask you, as far as using all the platforms you guys have at your disposal, what does a Smarty allow you guys to do or make easier to do when you're tuning, 6.7 Cummins?
Yeah, that's a good question. Smarty, I would say, overall, it's the biggest thing Smarty has going for it is its ability to interface in real time with the Cummins ECU, and that's not a new thing for Cummins either. They have that real time tuning capability in pretty much all of their engine control modules. Well, back to 98 or whatever, and it's kind of surprising to me that nobody's taken advantage of this in the aftermarket up until now. But what it boils down to is that the switchable tuning that we've been doing through the CSP platform with EFI Live has us kind of narrowed down to a group of tables. We'll call it 20 tables. I'm not sure what the exact number is of tuning tables that we can switch between on the fly. And otherwise, the truck runs out of the base file. So there's one main file, and then there's one, or 4 other sub files that are much, much smaller. It might be 4,000 tables in the main file and 20 tables in the sub files. But with the architecture that Smarty's using to switch on the fly, you can switch a lot more parameters with their real-time groups.
That's cool.
What that means for the end customer, they might not even notice it, right? But as a calibrator who's looking for the perfect quality calibration, it removes a set of limits that was previously there for me. I will say I'm still not terribly impressed with MM3's editor. It's getting there. It's getting better. They just released the logging capability. It's a platform in growth, and Smarty's committed to it. So it keeps getting better, which is exciting to see.
What's really cool about it too is, you don't have to buy something separate to unlock the PCM. It's just like one kit that has everything in it that you need, and it's usable. It's not like you unlock it and then you've got a set of gauges that you may or may not use, again. So that's what I think a lot of the guys are really drawn to, is that, and then also what you're able to do with the transmission, with the tuning and with the converter lockup strategy.
Yeah, the MM3 makes it really easy to, for the end user, it's definitely very easy. They don't have to go under the hood and use an additional, like pass. With EFI Live, they still have to use a bully dog or an edge to unlock. Obviously Edge just released the ability to unlock with the CTS. The customer would previously have to plug into the J1939 connector under the hood and then go through the unlock process. That takes a great deal of time. Not every truck's the same, but typically we've seen, 30, 45 minutes on the unlock, and then assuming that everything went well, they got another 20 minutes or so flashing with EFI Live, and then they, depending on where they want their switch, or if they want to switch, they could use the AutoCal to change the tune, but if they wanted to switch, now they're drilling and mounting a hole somewhere. The MM3, it's a all-in-one, basically. There's a few modules that plug into each other. You got a cable that runs out to that data link that always stays plugged in, and then you have the monitor that gets plugged in, and a suction cup mounted to the windshield. During the, once that stuff is installed, It's simply retrieving a stock file. There's a micro SD card in the unit. Saves the file to it. The customer will send that file in, and we'll modify that file, send it back to them. When they program the custom file in, it'll actually unlock the ECM at the same time. It's a much faster process, typically like 4 or 5 minutes, and then they're all set. At that point, they can go in and start the truck, change their display. They can select whatever they'd like to monitor, RPM boost, fuel pressure. In the recent update, they've added a lot of stuff that most guys might not pay attention to, but they put in like engine torque output and estimated horsepower and things like that. So they can set their gauges to whatever they like, and then they can go into the real-time group, change the tune. Typically takes about 10 seconds or so to change that, but it can all be done on the fly. And there's no additional holes that need to be drilled. It's a very nice platform, all in one. It's.
Yeah, I would just piggyback on that and say that anytime you can have a customer use one product instead of use several products to get the same job done, even if the cost is similar, it's nice to stay within one product.
Definitely, and it's like it's always great when there's choices, for the consumer, and you guys have nailed down the EFI Live side of it, and to see what you're doing, not just with the 6.7s, but this stuff goes all the way back to the VP trucks, as well, and it's a whole other realm that those guys now have, to dial in, their builds or their different setups on the trucks.
I would like to spend a couple minutes on the VP side too, Patrick, because I think there's a lot of. I'm fairly new to the VP side. I bought a truck about a year ago, maybe not quite.
8 months ago.
8 months ago. I started in the diesel side on a 12 valve, but anyway, the MM3 product is getting some bad press in the aftermarket around the VP on account of the pump tap issue, we'll call it, so that the truck can't be tuned without tapping the pump, and that MM3 doesn't have a pump tap itself. And I would really say that guys who are focused on that are kind of missing the point of the MM3 and missing the point of the benefits around the VP platform. As you drive high horsepower VP trucks, smoke and rattle are the two words that I would use to best summarize that experience. And we've used the MM3 to tune our VP truck in-house. We just did a video of it, which will come out in a few days. But it's just unreal how nice that truck drives. We took it from 180 rear wheel horsepower to 500 rear wheel horsepower. Stock appearing, drop-in turbocharger, basic set of nozzles, stock pump. And there's no smoke, and I no longer have the urge to upgrade to a common rail. You know what I mean? It's like it's a fun truck to drive. So I don't know. I think the VP market. I wish those trucks were fresher. You know what I mean? A lot of those customers are fairly new to the market, and they're very caught up in the horsepower is king. You know what I mean? How much power can I get? How much RPM can I get? And they drive those trucks daily, and if they drive anything like some of the ones that I've driven that have come in for tuning here, it's a night and day difference that you can't really see in a peak dyno number or a peak RPM number, if that makes sense.
And that's, there's the really cool thing about the VP trucks is they're affordable.
Right.
And so a lot of people who are new to the diesel platform, they'll gravitate towards them. Mm-hmm. And to have this kind of tuning option, which we've been talking to people about for a while, they get this big compound set because they're trying to keep up with the common rail guys.
Right.
Or a big single. But the tuning options really weren't there to kind of dial it in. And you're right, it's just like it's a smoke show, it rattles, it's just the drivability isn't there. So the Smarty platform is really cool, especially with your guys' expertise with calibrations, bringing that together for them.
Yeah, it's nice to see some movement on that platform. Like you said, it's an old platform, but there was clearly a gap there for a long time, and it's nice to have the tools to fill it, even if we're late.
I think a lot of guys, if they come in and actually drive the truck, I know that's not feasible for everybody to do, but if they come in and drive it, they'll see the difference firsthand. If they get out of their truck that's all smoky and not very fun to drive, that hop into our truck that we have dialed in pretty well, they'll see the difference. It's very clear. See, all around drivability is completely different. They're not bucking and smoking, you're not having to floor it to do something. It's a full pedal. It's just like driving a common rail truck. And we got a built trans in our truck. When the converter locks, I mean it gets right into a sweet torque spot, and it just takes off. I mean, it's smoke free. It's cool EGTs.
The boost sensor reads the right pressure.
Yeah, I mean,
it's
it's not what you see on a daily basis for the VP trucks. I think a lot of the guys, they already have modules, and they think, okay, well, I'll just deal with what I have. But if the guy that's, searching for every last ounce and, wants it to drive better, the MM3 is definitely the key to making that happen.
And before I let you guys go, I've been seeing, I'm a sucker for old Chevy trucks.
Yeah.
And I've seen that Scottsdale that you guys did a Duramax swap on, and I was telling Jim earlier, like his Cobra, I love that car. I always look forward to seeing what he's posting, what he did with his truck, what you guys are doing. But man, that is one clean Chevy truck.
I couldn't pass it up. The body is clean. The rest of the swap was a teenage attempt at best. We had to do a lot of unfucking of it to get it right. But the truck is clean. The truck is nice. It's straight. Those square bodies just have a look, man. They look tough, especially when they're done in black and done right. But 650 horsepower doesn't hurt. It's a riot.
Something
Gets
about
looks.
the square bodies.
Yeah. It's
not even a Chevy guy, and I like it. It's a sweet truck.
yeah.
Well, I appreciate you guys taking time today to talk to us.
Sure.
Like I said earlier, that UCC truck, man, I can't wait to see what happens at the competition. Things you guys learn doing that. It totally, you stepped outside of the box.
That's what that truck's about, man. Whether we win or not, or whether we do well or not at the competition, you'll see a lot more of that truck. And I think the message from that truck to the aftermarket, is going to resonate for a while.
Oh, definitely. Well, thank you guys. We appreciate it, and
yeah, not a problem.
Look forward to chatting with you guys later in the year and picking your brains some more on those big Cummins motor swaps.
Right on. Sounds good, Patrick. Good talking to you, man.